Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll? City Attorney Doctor? Here. City Manager Burke? Here. Commissioner Logan?
Here.
Commissioner Reed? Here. Commissioner Shirtley?
Here.
Pro Tem Dean? Here. Mayor Collins is excused this evening. Welcome and thank you for participating in the City of Helena City Commission Administrative Meeting. We are pleased to be able to provide the alternative meeting format for this in the city's effort to broaden public participation. Please be patient as you may experience technical difficulties during the meeting. We welcome your public commentary during the meeting. Please read the following tips and guidelines for the app usage and for your participation. All right, so first item, are there any commission comments or questions?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Dean. I had asked for a parking update and Manager Burton, do you want to do that in your city manager's report?
That's what.
Okay.
Great. We'll move on to board appointment review. We have the Metropolitan Planning Organization Transportation Technical Advisory Committee. The mayor has recommended the appointment of Richard Sloan to a first full term on the Metropolitan Planning Organization Transportation Advisory Committee as a non-notarized advocate at large. Are there any comments or questions from the commission? Seeing none. Actually, first, we will. Is there any public comment on the MPO CAP appointment? We'll go ahead and move on to Helena Citizens Council, HCC representative.
We don't have much to report other than I'm one of the newbies on the Helena Citizens Council, and we have two other people who've been appointed recently. So District 5 is well staffed, I guess you might say. Our next meeting and open house is on September 25th, and we're looking for public input on the future for the urban defining and development projects. So we'll have a meeting right after that open house. So that's about it.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from the commission? Then we will move on to the city manager's report.
Mayor Pro Tem, I got two brief updates. Let's start out with the Affordable Housing Trust. I may send it over to Greg.
Thank you, Manager Burton. Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, real quick, give an update on where the Twin Creeks project is. So on August 29th, United Housing Partners and their two LLPs closed on funding with all the partners on August the 29th. Our portion was $1 million minus a small origination fee. So they have all their funding in place for that project. Building permits were issued the week prior for both of those two units, two structures, creating 72 total units. You'll find, if you remember, when that was brought back for revision to the agreement, we actually funded 52 of the 72 units. So those permits were issued on August the 20th. So we've got everything in place to start the project. And if you've seen floating around from perhaps the clerk's office, an invitation to a groundbreaking ceremony on Monday. That's going to be at their site on Dorothy Street, 300 Dorothy Street, and that's at 11 o'clock on Monday. So that's just my brief update on where the Twin Creeks project is.
Commissioner Reed asked for a brief update on the parking. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Greg.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Commission. So I was planning on giving you a full parking update on the upcoming October 16th meeting, which would include the changes of the parking and the implementation of the new software and all the other going-ons with parking as we progress through this kind of transition period. I did want to, we received, I think it's about 147 comments on the Be Heard. We haven't got through them all. We haven't got through and categorized them. So that would be part of that parking update that we would present, kind of categorize all the comments into some overall topics so that we can have some recommendations moving forward or how to have those discussions or implementation strategies. The last thing I wanted to update you on was we did have our first parking advisory committee on September 12th, I believe it was. And there was some point of confusion, and that was on my part because I misspoke when they asked about the first hour free parking going away. And I misspoke by saying it was only going from the garages. But the plan was to eliminate that all across in order to have that one zone, one rate across the city. If we didn't have, if we had those different areas, then that would require a different zone, and that was what we were trying to simplify without having multiple zones. So my apologies for that confusion. I will send out a letter or an email to the committee so that they are aware of that and just clarify that for them. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any comments or questions from the commission? Next, we'll move on to presentations. We have the tax increment financing advisory board follow-up discussion. And I believe that's Director Brington.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and members of the commission. Ella's online here if you've got questions from her as well. As you recall, back on June 12th, we originally brought this to you in an admin meeting to start talking about some alternatives or options relative to our TIF boards. Two options that we presented at the time. One, keeping the boards separate relative to their districts and their plan and their funding, with creating a new board for the Capitol Hill Mall TIF district, or Capitol Hill TIF district. And then alternatively, a second option, which to be honest with you is the staff preferred alternative or option, is a consolidation of the three boards into one board. You asked as commission for us to go back to the railroad TIF district and the downtown TIF district boards, garner some feedback from them relative to our proposals. We did that. We did that back in their meetings back in July and August, I believe, with both of those boards. Staff that gave a very detailed explanation of our options or our alternatives, what we were looking at. The combination or keeping them split didn't really garner any concerns from either of the boards. There were some questions relative to fair representation and what would happen relative to the one set of representatives in a combined option, dictating what could potentially be done in another district relative to funding. And then two, about the funding itself. We explained to the both boards that the funding pieces will never be combined. We just can't combine the funding pot. They have to be separate. There's three separate plans. Those plans will never be combined. They each have their own uniqueness. They each have their own set of goals and objectives. So that explanation alleviated some of the concern. And then we also talked to them about, the potential for one set of appointed members from one district kind of dictating how funds are spent in another district. We did explain that their role is only advisory capacity. They don't make a decision. That's ultimately your decision. And moving forward, after the recommendation is made, we will be totally transparent to the commission how the vote was made and the discussion and whatnot relative to the recommendation. That kind of appeases them as well too. So we feel comfortable that both the sitting advisory boards are comfortable with either option that we take. And as I stated earlier, the staff recommendation or staff preference is to do a combined board. Combined board with 9 members, 3 from each of the TIP districts. That gives equal representation and an odd number to provide the next level of equal representation, keeping an odd number. That would be 27 members. That's unworldly. We just can't do that. And then keeping 2 separate and then creating a third for the Capitol Hill. If we give equal representation, 7 members to each district, well, then there's 21 members you have to appoint to these boards. So our preferred alternative is a combination board with the representation that we've laid out in the draft resolution, creating the combined board. And we put that in front of you. We mistakenly did not include it in the admin packet, but we've put that in front of you. That kind of lays out how the appointments would work relative to representation from each of the districts. I'm happy to answer any questions that you have relative to this.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just a quick question. I'm looking at this as we go, so forgive me if it's there. So in the process of moving to the 27-9, it would be, I think I got that right. I might remember wrong, but in reducing the number of order having 3 from each district, would the process be to start all over again? And so the existing members are not, and we blank slate 3 new people from each district.
That's correct. Yes, it is.
Thank you.
So we are looking for consensus relative to which process, to which avenue or which option to pursue. And we're more than welcome, Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, to bring both options for you to review at a meeting and public hearing. I'm afraid we'd muddy the waters if we give 2 options for the public to look at. We would just rather present one. We just wanted a consensus which avenue to proceed with, either combined board or keep them all separate, knowing we'll have to create a third, which just adds to a overtaxed workload, to be quite honest with you, from a staff standpoint.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Very brief, thanks on this. Not trying to muddy the waters or overthink it, but just with this combined TIP board, have say subcommittees that would focus on each district, with each committee being made up of that district's members.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, no, that's not envisioned. The way the appointments work for the combined board, there's 3 members from each of the TIP districts. That make up is, and I meant to highlight it because I knew this was going to be a point of discussion. So we would have so we would have 1 owner or representative of business located with each of the URDs. So we'd have 3 owners. We would have 1 owner or representative of an owner of property within the URD. So we'd have 3 property owners on the board, and then 1 at-large member that has a stake or some other invested interest in the URD. So we would have, that'd be 3 more. So we have the 9 separated between business owner, property owner, and then an at-large for each one.
Thank you.
One question I would have, and I get that fall under the at-large, particularly for like railroad district and Captain Vermont, there's probably other opportunities for as well, and I guess downtown too, renters in the area, especially since housing is a component of our TIP strategy. Would you consider them falling into the at-large?
That was Mayor Pro Tem and Commission. That was the idea for that large, to capture those that are owners within the district.
Especially, thank you. Just a quick follow-up. From Commissioner Shirtley's question, So you said they each still maintain their own plans and their own funds, so the work that was previously done by 9 in each district will now be done by 3, so when it's time to update each plan, will the full board be working on each of the 3 plans? Will there be some outreach to more people from each district? How do we see that?
Mayor Pro Tem Commission, so that's the idea, that's the intent, that now the combined board essentially will function as the planning advisory piece when it comes to each one of those plans. They won't be doing the 3 plans at one time because they all sunset differently. So they're not going to be working on each of the TIF district plans the same calendar year because they weren't implemented the same calendar year. But the intent is, yes, the combined board would work on a planning documents for each of the URDs when and if when they sunset, which is still another 12 years out for the oldest one.
Ms. Ray has a couple comments.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioners. Just to build on what Director Brink was saying too, as regards review of application or funding priorities and things, I think that one of the things that we've been discussing, and I apologize, Chris, if this is what you already tried to state, the sound hasn't been so great coming through my computer, but we could have sort of breakout subcommittees of the 3 representing each district just to do the annual work plan evaluation, which is something that we have done with both the downtown and railroad TIF districts in the most recent years when we've worked on that in 2023. So as far as making the recommendations to the commission about the funding priority areas within each URD tied to each URD plan, that is something that we could do, if that helps answer that question further as well.
So one.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. I apologize for not being there this evening. This is Danae Claiborne. Regarding the subcommittee question by Commissioner Shurtleff, I would just remind the Commission that the current standardized bylaws you all have adopted that I believe the intent was to use for this newly created TIF, we'll call it a super board, does have a component, those standardized bylaws do prohibit subcommittee use. Then there was several factors that came into that decision when we discussed the standardized bylaws, with all of you. So we would need to remove that provision if that's the desire.
Thank you, Ms. Claiborne. I think, and I don't know if Director Brink or Mr. Ray have thoughts about this, but whenever we have any type of neighborhood update, it goes through the same sort of stakeholder public process where it's not just, I mean, there might be a group of people who are on an advisory board that are providing input, but it is a public process where we'd be asking for additional input from community members or groups that would have an interest in that. Would you characterize that as correct?
Mayor Pro Tem, Commission, yes, that is correct. And if I'm not mistaken, of course, I wasn't here when these 3 URD plans were done, but they're essentially a planning document. They go through your planning commission or consolidated city county planning board. So they not only will filter through the TIF, so the TIF boards didn't exist when the plans were done, because that's one of the requirements before the TIF districts and the boards are set is the plan is implemented or adopted. So we would envision that the super board would kind of act as an advisory capacity to the planning commission or whatever planning group will be the planning commission would handle the workload for the 3 URD plans. And so they act as the stakeholders in this sense to the planning commission.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I think I still have a couple of questions. I'm grateful that you were able to reach out to the boards and answer their questions, and if they're feeling comfortable, I think I'm prepared to get behind the super board. I'm slightly trepidatious that we're moving, we're pulling a very local thing out and making it broader, but I'm I think Commissioner Logan asked about process, and I'm supportive of moving forward with the process. Particularly if I have time to digest these documents, and again, it sounds like the boards are prepared to.
Is there any public comment on this topic? No hands raised, no. So it's just to close the loop on this. The commission's comfortable with recommendation moving forward. Pending no further questions. After the chance to digest these documents. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to department reports, updating the pay grade, for water and wastewater operations.
Mayor Pro Tem, I'll just turn it over to the Deputy Director, Ed Coleman, for this one.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Pro Tem, Commissioners. Really what this is we're trying to address an inequity that we don't know how long it's been around. We believe it goes back to union origins, where the utility maintenance folks likely did better in some union negotiations and got an increased on-call rate. And so, which is 1.75 times their hourly rate. So if they make $20 an hour, it'd be $37.50 for being on call for a day, versus currently they're at $15 a day for being on call. And so really what we're looking to try to do is make this equitable across the divisions within Public Works so that everybody gets paid equitably for being on call to address emergencies at water or wastewater plants. That's really what we're looking at. So I'll turn it over to Tim.
This is a policy question, so everybody's comfortable signing off on it. But solutions engagement. I think that I feel comfortable proceeding approving this policy with consensus of the commission.
Thank you, Mayor. From a policy standpoint, 100% makes sense. Do we have any sense of potential budgetary implications of this? I have no idea how often people are on call that they come to these. Thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioner Reed, for the final budget, I did consult with the Public Works Director, and we did add a potential impact. I think it was $2,000 per fund. $20,000. I'm just thank you. $20,000 per fund to each of the water and wastewater budgets in order to accommodate anticipating this change. So it was incorporated into the final budget.
Mayor Pro Tem and Commissioner, just so you know, there is a water and waste, both a water and a wastewater operator on call 365 days a year, just so that they can respond to any kind of emergency. And once they go from on call to being like actually in a call in status, then they get an increase in a pay rate. So it's an on call and a called in, so it's two separate things.
Comments or questions? I think this is one of those that's a little bit of a no-brainer because we have multiple instances where those folks on call to save their weekend, and it's informing that consistent policy across the board. We will move on to railroad crossing elimination letter of support. Or myself, sorry.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. Before you this evening is a draft letter of support for the Railroad Crossing Elimination Program. The city is pursuing a grant in partnership with Burlington Northern, Santa Fe, and the Montana Department of Transportation. It is the grant would be to do preliminary engineering and environmental review for a grade separation at Montana Avenue. It's sort of a misnomer with the crossing elimination grant. We're not eliminating the crossing, it would be a grade separation. So there would be right now the recommendation is to do a tunnel essentially for vehicular traffic and multimodal, with the rail staying at grade. And then, because of the coexistence of, the 5-point intersection, commonly referred to as malfunction junction, that would also be included in the project. So that would be, additional engineering, and environmental review for a roundabout at that 5-point intersection. There's a $800,000 grant match that would be required for local cash match, on this $4 million grant. And right now the agreement is that that would be split between the partners. So it's $266,000, 666. So if there's any questions, myself or Dr. Kanopi can answer this for you.
Comments or questions? I'll just make a comment. I am so excited about this. It's something we've talked about, not just this year in our strategic planning, but constantly comes up. And I think in terms of the quality of life, getting to work in school on time, having safe passages, a direct route into the 6th ward for folks. I mean, truly is a transformation for a very large cycle.
Yeah, well, Tim, I would just add that it's, I think, very noteworthy as well that we have really good partnerships with this project. I don't even know to
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just have to echo what Mackenzie said, as well as the city manager. With regards to the passenger rail needs to pass, I believe that the traffic on that rail is significant on the health and issues, whether they be. But yeah, I think this is very exciting. I can't tell you how many overpass or following, so that's what makes sense. And the 6th ward definitely needs this along with the roundabout on malfunction junction, which that's really good. So thank you for your work on this.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Just, I know we don't have clear answers. I can't use it. I'm so excited this could finally happen, but if we got the grant, what would the timeline be for hearing about the grant and the actual engineering, and then looking, assuming everything goes well, like what would be a timeline for actually having?
Mayor Pro Tem and Commission, I'm not 100% sure of the timeline for hearing back on the grant, but the idea behind this whole project is once we if we get approved for the grant, to get that RFQ started and going, because the railroad is also excited about this project, and in our discussions, the plan of attack is that the next round for this railroad crossing elimination grants would be next year, would be to put in for the implementation money. And typically projects that have had the planning grants and then apply for the implementation have a better chance moving forward. So I would say probably maybe rough guess, maybe 5 years that we could see implementation of this. That's probably, hopeful, but a good goal.
Good project. Ms. Opitz and the city manager.
Commissioner Reed, the tentative release information for when awards would be put in place for this would be June of 2025. If it follows past funding cycles, there can always be delays.
Just Mayor Pro Tem Commissioner wanted to just add this to the record, but so it's not. This would be a tremendous improvement for the
Mayor Pro Tem Commission. Thanks to my deputy for reminding me of this, but we do have the crossing there for the Centennial Trail in design right now. It's going to be a fairly expensive improvement. So our recommendation is to delay that release of that project to see if we're successful with this grant, because we would hate to spend, upwards of $600,000 to $800,000 on something that gets for out, in a few years. So to see how successful we are, and then we can move that money to other pedestrian crossings that we feel are an issue in the city, or just set that money aside until we kind of see where we're at with this project. Just wanted to bring that up so that it's out there, and we'll be coming forward once we hear about that.
Is there any public comment on this topic? Okay, we will go ahead when you have the City of Helena FY25 community grants.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, Commissioners. Before you in the packet is a list of what we anticipate will be our grant seeking schedule for this coming fiscal year, or fiscal year that we are now in. This demonstrates sort of a paradigm shift in terms of how we've thought about grants and how we've been able to think about grants. As a city, there are definitely grants that our departments seek every single year, and they anticipate that as part of their revenues that come in every year. We certainly have positions within the city, the local grant, for example, within the city attorney's office that funds victim services. That solely funds that position. Those are things that we're looking at all the time. However, we have generally been more, I guess, in the boat of being reactive to grant NOFOs as they have come up, and that's problematic in a lot of ways. Generally NOFOs are only notices of funding delayed. Notices of funding come up and they're only open for a month, maybe 2 months at a time. Within that time period, we would be trying to assess a lot of different factors about what's maybe going to be a good fit for the city or what's not. And it doesn't leave a lot of time to actually execute the grant writing, to weigh and assess whether or not we've got match funds to be agile to be able to go for those grants. So their departments have done a lot of work on the front end this year to try to be thinking about what we're going to do for this current fiscal year. I would be remiss to say that this is a complete list for FY25, because we do have a lot of, we're in the middle of a budget year for the state government already. And so we have a lot of existing grants that are already open that start at the calendar year or start in October. And I want to make sure that we place this list in context. Public Works, for example, has $10 to $16 million of open grants right now related to ARPA projects. So you'll notice that their list for 25 is just a single grant, but there is a lot of work that's happening on the ground already with projects that are already in existence. I did want to note on the Parks and Rec section of this list that the 3 grants that are highlighted in green we've already received those grants. Brad has been very busy already this year, so those ones are already in. The rest are all pending or would be coming down the pike for later in the year. If you have any specific questions, you have to address them. Otherwise, I didn't intend to go line by line unless there were questions.
Questions or comments?
I'm just pretty proud. This is awesome. I'm a grant person, so this makes my heart happy to see. I appreciate all the work that is going on. I love the proactive versus reactive. So thank you to you and everybody who's done this.
One thing that I was wondering if we could just look and see if there's potential. I was reading an article a while back. It was put out by the local construction hub that the national department, and it was profiling some of the safe streets for all grant recipients. because our LRT wasn't updated, and other reasons we were not effective previously for that. One of the things that we were talked about is that, the communities have been successful that who have a, action plan in progress of development, and so, and I don't think they open up that, notice of funding until like February or March this year. But I don't know if that's something we could maybe explore since, you know, we're now starting to move and we open all our and hopefully like a kind of new year eventually. Or getting consultant. It would be really good if we could talk to like massive so I'd also want us to submit like application of these.
Mayor Pro Tem Commission, we can definitely look into that. And yes, we're hopeful that by, you know, the turn of the new year, that we'll have that consultant on board. And you know, one of the things that will be expressed in that request is that the public participation plan and the action plan is, they run parallel to the LRTP, but those are the things that we need to get done ASAP so that we can be able to submit for some of these grants. So yes, we'll definitely look into that and keep that on the forefront.
So well, I mean, this is great. Okay, any public comment on this item? Seeing none, is there any general public comments on any topic not discussed today? Any fun? Yeah.
I know that mentioned it's Custer and Cruise Avenues study. And so those are in the next.
Okay, any final discussion on the question? So,